The quarterback controversy, it's no more. We'll talk about that and everything that happened at the spring game on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And shout out to every member of the Everyday Club. Make sure you're tuned in 9 p.m. Central Time for Locked On Sooners live Monday night here on YouTube. Josh, what's going on, my friend? How was your weekend?
Well, it was great. Anytime we get football in whichever capacity you want to describe the spring game as football is terrific. So we got that. We've been building up, obviously, all spring for this one day. And there's so many takeaways, positive, negative, question marks that persist or were created via the spring game. But I wanted to just start here because if you're new to the show, most of you are part of the Everyday Club, and we love our Everyday Club members. But for those that maybe just coming around to Locked On Sooners, not John's every day in, day out job. Now, he's very committed to Oklahoma football and Oklahoma athletics via Sooners Wire and Locked On Sooners right here. But as compared to some other media members, really both of us, because of other work responsibilities, we don't always get to go to every press availability. We don't get to always go to every football game from a media standpoint, sit in press row. But you were there on site for this spring game for Oklahoma. So I'm just generally curious off the top, how was it, my friend?
Well, first, I just want to give a big shout out to the Oklahoma Athletics Media Department. I got there a little bit late, actually. So had to coach my daughter's soccer game, in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and a good 2.5, 3 hour drive from Norman. Game got finished at 11, had some different things pop up. I didn't really get to leave town until like afternoon, way later than I wanted to. And so got there just maybe 5 minutes after the game started. But the security team on site, the event team, and then the media department, they got me hooked up. They got me settled. Shout out to Dino and Letha, part of the security team at the event. They made sure I got connected with the right people to get me my credential and get me up the press elevator. So big shout out to them. No, man, it was a really cool experience. My first time to sit in the press box for any OU event, really. And it was a totally different experience watching a live game. I mean, this is the closest thing we've had to live football in a few months, but the view was fantastic, getting to sit up there in the press box, being able to see, everything. Like that's the all 22 view that you want to have. Right. And so I took advantage of it. I sat there and I watched wide receiver DB reps. I sat there and I looked at the offensive line play against the defensive line. I took advantage of seeing what the safeties were doing at the back end on different plays and really came away just really impressed by the overall experience, just from a media, perspective. I just think that they did a really good job in the press box, just keeping us up to date with what was happening since there weren't any live stats available for the game. So they did a really, really good job there. So shout out to Mike Houck and his crew, the OU media department. Just again, fantastic job. They are excellent at what they do. And then, really being able to be there in the post game, presser, listening to Kyler Murray speak, the coaching staff, Dillon Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, Dasan McCullough. We got some audio, got some video that, I'll cut up and bring to the table for shows this week that we can talk about. But really, man, just a fun time. It was a long day. I mean, I left, Tahlequah at noon, but got up 7:00 that morning, and then didn't get back into my bed until after 12:30 midnight. So, a long, long day, but man, so fun. I can't believe I get to do this. I really can't, and it's a unreal experience. I shared on Twitter, kind of as it was all transpiring, just, the appreciation I have for a guy like RJ Ochoa, who's the managing editor of Blogging the Boys, part of the SB Nation network, Bryson Treese, who's the managing editor and owner of InsideTheStar.com. Bryson gave me my first start. He gave me my foot in the door to content creation, writing, things like that. And RJ Ochoa was the first person I talked to when I expressed the desire to get into this. If you're part of the Everyday Club, you know that I'm a nurse by background. Like, that's my trade, my day job. This is something I love to do. It's a passion side hustle that is so much fun. And so, being able to go from where I started 7 years ago in 2016, writing about the Dallas Cowboys and fantasy football for free, just trying to get experience, get my foot in the door, and doing that for several years until I actually started getting paid to do it. I mean, it was a surreal experience, and one I'll never take for granted because of how hard, just the opportunities that were presented through the hard work and just building relationships. If you're out there and you're looking to get into content creation, the two things I'll tell people all the time is build relationships with people and just be cool to people. Like, be a good dude and work, like put in the work. So that's how the experience went down. But man, it was a fun game. Like, I really enjoyed watching the game. I know we kind of crapped on the format of it and the scoring and all that, but getting to see a lot of these new guys for the first time, especially, and seeing some of the older guys, with a year under their belt in Brent Venables' system was a lot of fun, Josh. And that's kind of where I think we should go next. Is just first, maybe we can talk what kind of surprised you, what stood out to you as you're watching the game.
Well, let's just, since you mentioned it, I'll just dovetail right off of it. It basically worked like an NBA All-Star game that they've created recently, where you had the Elam ending. I didn't have that on my bingo card of how this thing was going to play out. And maybe I should have, but I think there were, the offense wasn't collectively from start to finish as efficient as I think probably we would have expected. And so what did that mean? Well, that meant that we had a lot of points going up on the scoreboard for the defense, for PBUs, and on and on and on, and punts, and you name it. And so all of a sudden you look up and it's like, wait a second, we're playing this thing in the 60s. We're playing this thing in the 70s. And then all of a sudden it was, well, hey, first to 84 wins this thing. And I don't think they could have stripped it, John, any better to where it came down to a 2-point conversion try. Kind of wild.
It was wild. And, the offense got started kind of slow. It was the defense was just flying, man. Guys like Dasan, McCullough, Reggie Pearson, Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen was fantastic. He had the interception, but the play that really stood out to me even more than that, although, that was a fantastic play, just great coverage in phase, did everything right on that play that you expect a guy to do when he's one-on-one down the field on a deep ball. But the play that was more impressive to me was when he came over from the middle of the field at the safety spot in the end zone. Austin Stogner's wide open going to the right corner of the end zone. And it looks like Dillon Gabriel's got an easy touchdown. And then Peyton Bowen just flies in, with that athleticism and that range, gets a hand on the ball and incomplete. And Oklahoma, I think they ended up having to go for it on fourth down and might have missed on that fourth down opportunity. But yeah, just Peyton Bowen, dude, he's the truth. I know Brent Venables has been talking him up all off season. And as a 5-star player, you expect him to be really good. And man, he was really, really good. The range is legit. Like, the dude's going to be a star. And I know you don't want to take too many things away from a spring game and overhype it, but the traits that you saw on display from that kid and the headiness of his game are immediately going to translate, and he's going to get snaps. He's going to get a lot of snaps this year. There's no red shirt for Peyton Bowen this year. He's going to be effectively a part of that safety rotation. And it was a good safety group. They all played really, really well. And so it's going to be really hard to determine who's going to be the starters. But I think you could very well see a 4-man safety rotation this year out of Oklahoma. It was really, that was kind of like the first thing that really stood out to me was Peyton Bowen's performance.
So that would be definitely, again, I've got a list of positives and negatives in the realm of takeaways here from this spring games. That definitely would have been on my list of positives. Let's share more of those with you as we roll along here. And it will, what Plank always likes to talk about on the radio side is the Family Guy compliment sandwich, right? Like, let's start with something nice in the middle, maybe not so nice, and we'll end with something nice. But first, just let me tell you, FanDuel. We love FanDuel. Grand slams, no hitters, double plays. What does that mean? Well, they're back. It means that baseball's back, and there's no better place to get in on the Major League Baseball action than over at FanDuel. That's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers step right on up to the plate. No sweat. First bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon where you can sign up, place your first bet, and get that no sweat first bet up to $1,000 if you don't win. So don't miss your chance there when you can join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. And we'd like to invite you as well. I know John and I cut up a couple of these to get the masses informed out there beyond just our Locked On Sooners network here. But for those in the overall NFL Draft Network, check it out. Locked On NFL's mock draft special. It's already here, and it's bigger and better than ever. Follow along with all 32 teams' first pick, -1 if you're looking at the Miami Dolphins, in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience. Only Locked On can deliver. All episodes, again, available now. Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I know that our man, Mr. Anton Harrison, found himself a landing spot in our Locked On NFL Draft mock draft. So go check that out again over on YouTube or wherever you consume your podcasts. So the compliment sandwich, let's revisit, shall we? Peyton Bowen, I thought, yes, was very, very impressive. Obviously, he comes away with an interception that probably you say not a well-thrown pass and not necessarily the best decision. But, hey, Bowen's there to cut the route off and go make the play. And it didn't take him long, right, in this setting to go make a play. And he made some others that you alluded to as well, John. So I thought defensively, he was absolutely a bright spot for Oklahoma. Dasan McCullough, to our listener, viewer out there that said, do they have him playing the right spot? Should he be playing edge instead? I think spring game, as one very brief introduction to Dasan McCullough, John, I'm willing to say very, very early here, it looks like the coaching staff has got this thing right. I mean, it looks like he can go cover and fly around. We know that he can play off the edge if the staff wants him to at times, but man, they've got Sooner Sports does Dasan McCullough with 3 tackles in the game, but a couple of those were very impactful tackles in this game. And it's easy to see what the coaching staff likes about Dasan McCullough. I know that, again, we're very, very excited there. And maybe in some ways a little bit too excited for McCullough without him actually having played a full legitimate football game in Norman, Oklahoma. But man, I just thought, how could you watch that spring game and not come away on the positive side with McCullough saying, okay, I think the coaching staff, John, got this one right.
Yeah, he looks very, very natural playing in space. And I asked him about that actually after the game, and I'll play that clip for you guys later this week. But he loves being in space. Yeah, that's what he wants to do. He just feels it very well. And that's the thing I took away from it, is that he just has a good feel for how to play in space, whether it's in the run game or in pass coverage. I mean, he was on Gavin Freeman in the slot several times and did not look out of place. He did not look unable to keep up with the agility and the quickness of Gavin Freeman. He had no problem. Like, he was just right there. So it's going to be he's going to be a monster. He really is, just because of his ability to get downhill, to run sideline to sideline. His athleticism, it shows up, man. It really stands out when you're watching him, run. I mean, he's just really, really a good runner. Like, he can just fly, and then he's physical. Like, at the tackle point, he's just an absolutely physical player. Very, very excited for what he's going to bring to the table, because man, I really felt like him and Stutzman and Kanik, they played really, really well. I felt like they were flying around. They were physical. They were getting downhill. I mean, some of what was happening to the offense was due to some offensive line injuries, but not all of it. I mean, some of it was these guys were just getting out there and just beating their dude and getting to the ball. And I mean, the running game was really struggling for a lot of this game. They had a couple big runs, but it was not an efficient day for the running game. It was only until I think they had, like, Tawi Walker had a decent drive, but it was just because they kept pounding away at him. His yards per carry average wasn't great, But there's like, nope, we're going to feed Tawi on this one. We're going to feature him. And I mean, he was like 3 yards in a cloud of dust on the whole drive. But ultimately, like, it's because the defense wasn't giving him any room to work with. He was having to really grind out every single yard on that drive. But man, yeah, Dasan, Kanik, Stutzman, really the whole linebacker crew. You can even talk about Kip Lewis, who, the OU media people credited him with 11 tackles. Absolutely crazy. Justin Harrington had 6 tackles himself. Stutzman, 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. We're just talking linebackers. McCullough had 3. Jaron Kanik had 2 tackles. Phil Picciotti had 2 tackles. Just a really strong game all the way around for the linebacker crew, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. And yeah, it's kind of crazy that Kip Lewis had 11. Reggie Pearson had a nice day. I know he's not a linebacker, but he finished with 7 tackles, what Sooner Sports credited him with, and Harrington had 6. So some nice defensive performances that we saw kind of all the way around for Oklahoma, and many of which from newcomers, which it was kind of been the theme here this last couple of months, is how are these newcomers going to fit in? Okay, so compliment sandwich. If we start positively, we got to mix in some of what I didn't think was altogether necessarily great, John, in this game. And I would start offensive line. As you mentioned, the run game to me was largely non-existent in this. 38 attempts, 112 rushing yards. That's a 2.9 yards per carry average. And on many occasions, John, it was worse than that 2.9 yards per carry average. So I came away, and I understand that there's bodies that will get healthy and thrown into the mix for Oklahoma. But I thought, to me, and again, it's the spring game. So it's like, if one thing looks bad, that's actually good because it's Oklahoma's defense that is holding them down. But I thought, if I'm being totally fair about it, the offensive line to me was way behind the schedule that I would have thought that they would have been at right now for the spring game. So I didn't think that looked great. Jaden Gibson, man, a couple of opportunities in this spring game to go make plays, and he just had unfortunate drops. So I thought, coming out of this thing, for somebody that really could have made a splash, and again, it's a spring game, so I'm not going to live in the world of absolutes that this somehow writes Jaden Gibson's story at the University of Oklahoma. I don't believe that to be true, but I do believe that we saw some relative lack of inexperience some inexperience when the lights came on and they were bright and it's your chance to go make a play. Jaden Gibson a couple of times was not able to do so. So that's I don't think that's a great sign for Oklahoma. And wide receiver as a whole, it took a long time just for the whole offense to get going, John. And I just think, generally speaking, you could probably say that about wide receiver as a whole, though Jalil Farouk and Gavin Freeman and some others made plays late. So it wasn't all bad, but I wouldn't say it was largely good for wide receiver either for Oklahoma.
No, the second quarter was a much different story than the first, but it was kind of a mixed bag for everybody. Everybody was getting involved in the passing game, but it was kind of when they started to feature the passing game a little bit more in that second quarter, that's when they really started to make some hay, especially with Dillon Gabriel at quarterback. The guy that really at wide receiver who kind of pushed the door open for himself to have an opportunity to be a significant player in 23 is DJ Graham. The dude had a few opportunities and came up with some big time plays. I mean, he had a 50-50 ball where he showed incredible body control. I mean, the defensive back is just right there. He's draped, really good coverage. And DJ Graham just puts himself in a good position, finds the football, and just waits on it to get down and bodies out the defensive back and makes the play. Showed a lot of really, to me, advanced ball skills there. We know he's really good. He's got really good hands, and we know he can play the football in the air. But I feel like in that situation, he showed really good ball skills to be able to track it, wait on it, put himself in a good position to come back and get the ball. Because you see oftentimes that, wide receivers kind of running that go route and the ball gets underthrown and they trip over themselves trying to come back to the ball, or they just can't come back to the ball and the defensive back gets there and intercepts it. No, he showed off really good ball skills. So I'm really encouraged by him. If anybody took a big step forward in the wide receiver group, I thought it was him. Making the transition back from cornerback to wide receiver, he kind of needed a big spring. And by all accounts, he's had it. and he showed it in the spring game. And I think it's going to give him more opportunities to make plays coming in the summer, and it has a chance to earn a starting role for my money, based on what we saw in the spring game. Now, he might not get there just because he's still making that transition, but I mean, he's a confident dude that's very, he believes that he can go out there and make plays, and that's going to resonate with Emmett Jones, Jeff Lebby. If he continues to make plays, they're not going to be able to keep him off the field.
Yeah, and it's almost like I kind of had my mind made up that I was disappointed in some ways about what we saw from Oklahoma just across the board offensively. That last portion of the spring game, I wasn't awarding credit to. You're right, though. DJ Graham, a couple of nice plays late. The stumbling, able to retain my balance, go make the play, and then do something after the catch with it was nice. And he finished with a couple of grabs for 74 yards. And yeah, I mean, I think that has to be one of the takeaways here too, is DJ Graham has, I don't want to even use the term it was a nice surprise with DJ Graham, because I don't know that it's necessarily a nice surprise with DJ Graham. We thought this could be a possibility with DJ Graham making the switch from defense back to offense, given his history coming to the University of Oklahoma. I mean, this is somebody that's accustomed to going and catching the football and making plays after the catch. He just hadn't been asked to do that at OU yet. So yeah, no, that was nice to see, and I'm happy for him. And I do hope that it continues to grow and parlay itself into he's a legitimate difference maker for Oklahoma at wide receiver, because again, in concert with some of the other things that haven't necessarily happened yet, whether it was Jaden Gibson sort of underwhelming again in this spring game for Oklahoma, or Nick Anderson, not getting to see Nick Anderson, the kind of opportunities right there for him. Okay, other positives. I thought it was an up and down day in general for Jackson Arnold, but we did see a couple, I think, flashes for one Mr. Jackson Arnold. The first run that they blew dead for Jackson Arnold, probably they got right. Probably he's getting knocked down after, I don't know, a gain of 6, 7, whatever it would have been. But I'm also not totally convinced that he was getting knocked down either. So I liked the dual threat ability we saw on the touchdown run that wasn't early for Jackson Arnold. And then, John, he probably makes the best throw of the day to Freeman late.
Yeah, that was a fantastic throw. I mean, he threw it in phase, like Gavin Freeman's still, working his route. Jackson Arnold just puts it right in a spot in the zone where Freeman's going to be the only one that can go get it. And Freeman makes a great play on the football. Gavin Freeman, talk about wide receivers that really helped their cause at the spring game. Like, that dude is going to be a really, really good player. I know we don't want to do the whole compare the white guy, the small white guy to the small white guy thing, but I mean, he's Drake Stoops, but he might be even better than Drake Stoops. And that might be blasphemous to say, but I mean, he's done is make plays when he's gotten the chance to be on the football field. Whether it was his true freshman season last year or in this spring game, he was a favorite target of Jackson Arnold, and he made the plays when he was asked to do so. So really excited about Gavin Freeman. Yeah, but Arnold, the athleticism's there. Brent Venables thought the play was dead. He had no questions about, whether or not the play should be dead. I think if it were a real game, there's a safety coming downhill pretty fast that probably lights Jackson Arnold up pretty good. But still, the ability to run by everybody else. He showed off some really, really good things. The touchdown throw was a really good one. Even on the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, he gets outside the pocket, settles himself well. I'm like, where's he going to go with the ball? He finds, Jaden Gibson flashing across the back of the end zone and just puts it right on the money, on the move. And unfortunately just comes in and out of Jaden Gibson's hands, but it was a dart, man. It was a fantastic throw. And those are the kind of throws that you need to be able to make at the highest level when, things aren't clean in the pocket, which for much of the game, they were not clean for Jackson Arnold in the pocket. I mean, the second team offensive line was really having a hard time with Oklahoma's defensive line. And he didn't really get a lot of time to throw. And, it didn't really rattle him. He kind of hung in there and kept playing and, came through at the end and had a chance to win the game for the team. But again, just the drop pass, it hurts you. But a lot of really bright things, a positive future for Jackson Arnold is coming, but that future is not now. And I know a lot of people want to talk about a quarterback competition, but it's not. Dillon Gabriel is this team's starter. When, things were going good in the first half, it was because Dillon Gabriel was making them happen. I mean, on time with the throws. He only had 2 bad throws, I could argue. One was the 50-50 ball that Peyton Bowen intercepted. The other one was just on an over route to to LV Bunkley Shelton that was going over the middle of the field and just put it a little too high. That's still a bit of a problem for Gabriel, is, maybe overthrowing some receivers. But again, he found the guy that he wanted to find in the progression, hit him in stride. I mean, put it on him. It was an accurate ball, just a little bit too high. So, I think Dillon Gabriel had a really, really good game. I even wrote about that over at SoonersWire.com. You can read that story. And you're only going to be as good as Dillon Gabriel is, but I think Oklahoma's offense is going to be really, really good in 23.
It's funny you mentioned LV Bunkley Shelton. He just had the one grab for 13 yards, but man, it was a good looking grab. I came away just from that one play thinking, man, he's got a little bit of twitch to him, little giddy up. I can, carrying over from the end of last season, I could see him being a factor, a serious factor for Oklahoma at wide receiver. Just some final thoughts on Jackson Arnold. Again, if we're doing the positives meets negatives meets positives, the one thing that definitely jumped out early was, yeah, what you're saying is true. I agree with you. And I think we knew that. Those of us that weren't going to get carried away that this 5-star freshman was coming in and taking the job over from day one, more than likely. The batted balls that he had batted down, I mean, that to me was, okay, yeah, he's going to take a little bit of time before he figures out, okay, now at this level, how do I create these passing windows at times? That wasn't necessarily great either, if we're being fair to grade both the good and the bad. That was definitely something to have a couple of batted balls early for Jackson Arnold that wasn't necessarily great. And then did you have something you wanted to say there, John?
I just want to say on the bright side, he did have more passing yards than Arch Manning. So we got that going for us.
Yeah, that's definitely good. And then just in closing, the day itself, John, I don't think you could tell the story of this day without what a celebration, what an honoring it was for Kyler Murray. I thought it was so cool that he was willing to, in the speech, share the story that, I texted my pops as soon as I got to Oklahoma. Man, I made the wrong choice when I went to school. I got that wrong, but I got this right. I should have been here all along. And lo and behold, I mean, obviously it played out that way. And then the other thing I thought was cool right off the top, John, and I get it, for some people it's like, okay, play the spring game, and this is great, connecting the alumni with the current players, and what a showcase for the history of Oklahoma football that is. But yeah, why don't you go out and win more than 6 games next season, right? Like, I get that the alumni outreach thing only goes so far with Brent Venables if you don't win, right? So you have to win to make that count. But man, I find myself getting in my feels a little bit. The way Brent Venables opened the whole day with the speech and welcoming, and he was in total coach mode. Okay, you line up here, you go there, and the whole set of alumni and Sooner greats came out. I thought that was a cool piece of the day. So it was just a great day for Oklahoma football. 55,000, upwards of that in attendance. So Kyler Murray, check. Brent Venables welcoming the alumni back, check. The Sooner fans themselves showing up, check. I just thought all of it turned out to be a really, really nice showcase for Oklahoma football.
Well, if you think of what the spring game really is, it's just a glorified pep rally. That's what you're doing. Yes, it's a scrimmage, but the main goal is alumni base, fan enthusiasm, recruiting. And Oklahoma accomplished all 3 goals. You got 54,000 out there on a cold, windy day. Was it different? Sure. That's 20,000 different basically. But let's be real. There's a difference between how fans feel about Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. That's just kind of the reality of it. But still, 54,000 people showed up to see Kyler Murray. And that's absolutely huge, man, to see this thing and to see the spring game. If that can be the annual attendance, it just goes a long way to showing to recruits, like, look at the enthusiasm behind Oklahoma football. And that's going to be the enthusiasm behind you, helping to create a good home field advantage when we have Alabama rolling to town, or LSU or Auburn, whoever it is, coming to town when you go to the SEC. I mean, and I think mission accomplished, getting the letter winners, getting, the Heisman Trophy winners back on campus again, for the second year in a row. That stuff speaks volumes about the level of excellence. And yeah, you're right. They got to win games. Otherwise, none of this matters. But they're going to win games. They're going to win games. And I said it in my group chat with my Sooners Wire compadres. By 2025, at the latest, this team is going to be a national title contender. 100% believe that. Jackson Arnold is going to be leading this team in his second year as a starter, and this team is going to be in the college football playoff as a national title contender. I have zero doubt in my mind. When you think of the recruiting classes they put together in 2022, 2023, 2024 has a chance to be as good. And you get transfer portal additions like a Dasan McCullough in. He may not be here in 25, but the groundwork that he's going to lay in 23 and 24 is going to set them up so well at Cheetah that whoever comes in after him is going to be ready to roll. Like, this unit is going to be flying, and it's going to be really, really good. I mean, they're continually building on this thing, and they're going to be so stinking good by the time that 2025 rolls around, that I really think that this is going to be a national title contender.
And all I can say to that is, I hope you're right, but I hope you're 2 years too late.
Yeah. If they beat me to the punch, by all means, I will eat that crow. I hope it happens this year, no doubt. But just kind of hedging a little bit, I guess, probably 2 years down the road, just maybe the more realistic. I just feel that confident about what they've got going. They could be that in 2024, based on, some of the things that we've seen as well. And we're going to talk way more about spring game on our live show, Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time on the YouTube channel. So go subscribe to the show over there on YouTube. Hit that notification bell to let you know when the live show begins and when new episodes drop. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sooners. Follow Josh at Josh on Ref. Follow me at John9Williams. You can also follow the show on Facebook as well, Locked On Sooners Podcast. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Again, free and available everywhere. Shout out again to the members of the Everyday Club for listening every day and tuning in. But until our live show Monday night, where again, we'll continue to break down the spring game and all that implies, as well as we got another commitment that we got to talk about. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer Sooner.